The world is filled with three types of people: the oppressors, the oppressed, and the bystanders. And as the human rights activist, theologian, and cleric Desmond Tutu said, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. As human beings, it is our duty to at least make the world aware of the injustices that have infected our societies for centuries gone by. The oppression of minorities in Sri Lanka has existed for several decades, from the abhorrent massacring of Tamil civilians to the shameless hate speech and crime targeted at the Muslim community. In today's presentation, I will explore one debilitating human rights violation, but it is by no means the only one. Many of us in today's world take pride in our attire. It brings a sense of individuality and sets the tone for our day. For Abdul Rahim Mazahina, however, a pattern on her dress set the tone for a foreseeable future of problems. A 47-year-old grandmother with a family and working husband, who lived a relatively simple life. Up until May the 17th of 2019, however, when on her way back from a bank, she was arrested for a pattern on her clothing, particularly a dress with a motif of a ship's wheel, but not to the police of the Kandy region. They thought the symbols represented the wheel of law, otherwise known as the Dharma Chakra, an important symbol in Buddhism representing the Eightfold Path. Mazahina said that she had no idea what the Dharma Chakra was. She had worn the dress several times, and no one had taken notice. Despite living in a predominantly Buddhist area, she ended up behind bars for 2 weeks. She suffers from asthma and hypertension, two conditions that live with you and impact on your everyday life. A soft-spoken lady was subject to disgusting verbal abuse. She was constantly labelled as a terrorist by the police in the prison. Rather ironic, as she was then charged under a hate speech law. It's extremely distressing to know that she was hounded by officials whose role it was to protect her. Her blood pressure rose so high that when she was released on bail, her husband, a construction labourer, had to give up his job to look after her. All because of a motif on a dress. A humble family was left with no income, health complications, and a traumatic ordeal that is yet from over. That's the story of just one Muslim family who have been subjected to these targeted arrests. Just 1 year later, on the 14th of April this year, minority and civic rights activist and lawyer Haziq Hizbullah was arrested for no reason from the police initially. Police eventually revealed that they were investigating him for aiding and abetting the Easter bombings. Why? Because he represented a man named Haziq Ibrahim for legal matters representing his properties and business, who was also the father of the 2 Easter bombers. But for the lawyer, this was a completely legitimate reason to have relations with the man. Another elderly man was arrested for having a Quranic verse on him, his right to do so. In the 3 stories mentioned, there are 2 common factors. The suspects are all openly Muslim and have been arrested inappropriately, unjustly, and the detention period has been completely disproportionate to the claimed crime, otherwise known as an arbitrary arrest. This is no coincidence. Following the horrific and inhumane Easter Sunday bombings in April of last year, where the world witnessed the deaths of over 250 people and over 500 people injured, Sri Lanka saw an insurgence in the arrests of Muslims. 80% of arrests made in the connection to the Easter bombings were Muslims, and of the remanded, 85% were Muslim. So what is an arbitrary arrest? An arbitrary arrest is made when it is highly unlikely that there is any substantial evidence or legitimate reason for the detention. It can expose the victim to further human rights violations, as when the arrest is made, it has no basis. In the case of Haziq Hizbullah, he has not been able to appeal to the court and has only seen his lawyer a handful of times. On top of that, no evidence had been presented until 3 months post-arrest. Amnesty International had feared that the Sri Lankan authorities are fabricating evidence. The sad truth is, the impact of arbitrary arrests are not individual. Seeing so many Muslims being arrested confirms to the general public the Islamophobic agenda that the authorities have. It results in Muslim-owned businesses losing significant amounts of footfall and income. It results in hate crimes, hate speech, and a marginalized feelings for Muslims in Sri Lanka. In 1948, the UN created a document outlining 30 human rights articles. Upon researching for this presentation, I found that 10 of the 30 had been broken by the Sri Lankan authorities. It's a shame that over 70 years on, a country that welcomes tourists from around the world so openly cannot welcome their own citizens.